The scriptures are very rich in the readings this morning, practically confronting each one of us with the realities of our faith. In that first reading, the apostles have been locked up and told to behave themselves and not to be talking about this Jesus Christ, or they'll get in serious trouble, are out in the square preaching the gospel. And so I suppose the obvious question that the scriptures pose for me and perhaps for yourself is how or do I preach the gospel? How do I promote this Jesus Christ as the first apostles were in the square? Where do I teach about Jesus Christ? Isn't that part of my role in baptism, to be an apostle? How do I do that? And I guess if we seriously think about it, it has to be in the way we live our normal life, doesn't it? We can't sort of after work put on a scarf and go into the square and start preaching, no. But we might do it in our families. And I was just thinking and thanking God when we saw all the little ones going off to their little reflection this morning. All of those families that are teaching and preaching the gospel to those little ones. It's a very beautiful and almost natural thing, but beautiful. That's the role of parent. And here we see it in action here this morning. Just beautiful. And we can teach or preach or reveal Christ to people in the most extraordinary ways, I suppose. I remember a mate of mine, a good footballer, and they had won the premiership, and then they went away on one of these wretched weekends. If you've ever been or witnessed footballers on a weekend after their victory, it's usually pretty untidy, to say the least. And my friend, it came to light after, years really. I was talking to this young man who wanted to become a Catholic. And it wasn't anything to do with the Catholic faith in his background. And I said to him, what prompted you to think, did you read something or what? And he said, no, a couple of years ago, he said, I was playing with this team and we went away for a weekend. And he said it was a bit untidy the whole weekend, really. He said, but 7 o'clock on Sunday morning, my mate Kevin was making a noise. I said to him, be quiet, what's the matter with you? And he said, I'm going off to Mass. And I thought to myself, we've been together all weekend. I don't know what this Mass is, but if it's that important that he can get up this early after the night we've had, and he's getting up to go to Mass, I said to him, can I come with you? And he said, oh yeah, if you want to. And he said, so that was my first time to go to Mass, but it wasn't so much that I wanted to go to Mass, but I thought, if that's so important to this friend of mine whom I know well, I want a bit of it. I want something that means that much. And here he was, as it were, preaching the gospel to his footy mates. And so it can happen in families, it can happen in sport, it can happen anywhere, I guess, at work. When people use the name of Jesus as a swear word, we can just duck our head and make out we didn't hear it, or we can say something, or we can, we don't have to be confrontative. Often, I have a fair bit to do with footy here, and at the football, often Jesus Christ is called upon, not as a player, but as some kind of frustration. So if I'm nearby, I usually say, I don't think he's playing today, mate. I said, what? Oh, sorry, mate. It's just making the point. You don't use the name of Jesus in frustration or anger or as a swear word. Jesus Christ is the Son of God. Now, you don't have to say all of that, but people go away thinking, oh, God, I better not do that anymore, and I wonder why. So we do have this role from the Scriptures today to be a preacher of the gospel, if you like, to be an entry point in people's lives for Jesus Christ. And it's probably never more beautifully done than in families. And the other thing today, I think, when we come to the gospel, the reading you have on the bulletin is the short version, and it leaves out really the most important part, if I can be that rude. This is where Peter, who has denied Jesus 3 times, he's the leading man in Jesus' little group that he's preparing. When Jesus gets arrested, somebody says, but you're one of them, aren't you? And he says, no, don't know the man. Curses and swears and goes off. What a effort that is. And then Peter sees Jesus crucified and he goes back to fishing. And he's just broken-hearted with himself, with his weakness, with his betrayal, and he goes back to fishing. And who appears? Jesus. Has he come to get him by the throat and say, you were supposed to be my friend? Whack! He just appears among them in his risen form and starts cooking a bit of breakfast for them. And then the time comes and you could almost see Peter thinking, oh, here it comes. He says, Peter, I'll see you in a minute. What must be going on in Peter's heart, for goodness sake? He knows he's denied Jesus with bad language. I don't know the man. And now he's confronted with him. Just the two of them. Peter, can I see you a minute? I can't believe what Peter must have been feeling. I guess he was thinking, well, here it comes and I deserve it. And instead of that, Jesus says, Peter, do you love me? And poor old Peter must have spluttered, yes, of course I do. And then he asked him 2 or 3 times, and Peter was then starting to feel really bad because Jesus had asked him a 3rd time, do you love me, Peter? And Jesus didn't come to say, listen, you will never be part of my team ever again. Anyone who denies me in public is out. He says, Peter, feed my lambs, feed my sheep. This is the incredible, for us learning today, this is the incredible, unbelievable, mad love of God for us as sinners. Sometimes we feel helpless and hopeless like Peter. Just let me go fishing. I've messed the whole thing up. I can't have anything to do with God anymore. I'm just a mess. And I made it and I've got to live with it. What we forget is that Jesus is quietly walking behind us. And at a given moment, he'll just tap us on the shoulder and say, Peter, can I see you a minute? And he hasn't come to beat him up. He hasn't come to say, you know what a whacker you are. He hasn't come to say, do you know how much that hurt? He hasn't come to do any of that. He's come to embrace him and make him the first pope of his church. And so today we have those two things, making Jesus known wherever we are, whatever we're doing, and the other is trying to understand, particularly in the sacrament of reconciliation, trying to understand the mad, crazy love of God for each one of us.